Do you know all the tips and tricks that will allow you to improve your break building around the black spot? This is Break from Life. Welcome back, and if it's your first time watching one of our videos, then it's fantastic to have you here. When people begin playing snooker, they often find that the black spot is in a little bit of an awkward place, and even just potting the black to begin with can cause difficulties. Why is this? Well, a lot of it could have to do with the fact that the black is always played into a slightly more closed pocket than all the other colours. All the other colours, when you play them off their spots, can be played square on into at least one pocket, where the pocket's at its biggest. The majority of players out there, though, won't even consider that they're playing the black into a slightly tighter pocket.
But this is such a common shot that players get used to it quickly, and it really only starts to become a problem when you start trying to play position.
Surprisingly, there's quite a lot more to think about when you're playing a positional shot from the black. You'll find very often around some of the other colours on the table that a simple stun shot, or by playing a series of shots where you simply allow the cue ball to run through at the correct pace, will allow you to very efficiently knock together some small to medium sized breaks. How does this work around the black spot though? Well, not necessarily so well. You see,
one of the main difficulties of playing position from the black is if you just go and pot it, or if you just play a basic stun shot, then you'll rarely, if ever, be in position on a red. So how do you play position off the black?
Well, to start off with, there are three main positions you can finish on around the black spot, and they're straight, low on the black, and of course high on the black. And where you finish will have a big effect on the shot you have to play and where you play it from. So let's start by looking at straight on the black. This is by no means an ideal position, because from here you can only really go forwards and back. This sort of position is only really any good for playing for reds that are below the black spot, either along the top cushion or close to a pocket. For players who are more confident with their cueing than playing a shot at an angle, playing to leave yourself a straight screw shot off the side cushion sometimes can be a good idea. But for the majority of players out there, I'd highly recommend getting a good angle on the black, and you can do this by finishing low on the black. Adjusting how high you strike the cue ball on this sort of shot can allow you to finish from anywhere from here to here and everywhere in between. In fact, finishing low on the black like this in a game of snooker is actually a very desirable position. You see,
leaving yourself with this sort of an angle on the black gives you a lot of options. Here, for example, I can finish on any one of these three reds into a number of pockets. But when you've got to play these sort of shots with the correct amount of spin and the correct amount of power, you start to make the black a lot more missable.
This is probably the shot that snooker players practice the most, because often it requires you to play a very accurate positional shot, and sometimes it's very easy to forget all about having to pot the black. It's even possible sometimes that you'll almost deliberately miss the black in order to get the correct position on the next red. And this is all because with these sort of shots you can't just stun it in or play the shot at the right pace. You have to get the correct amount of spin on the ball and play the shot at the correct pace, and at the same time you've still got to pot the black. That's why I'd highly recommend spending a lot of time practicing potting the black with the correct amount of backspin.
I've even shown before how the best way to get into position on a shot like this is to play it as a drag shot. And if you want to know how to play drag shots, then try the video in the card right now.
It's also on the Break from Life channel page, along with a load of other videos that will help you dominate at the game. And while you're there, make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel. An angle slightly lower the black spot will allow you to play the most precise positional shots from the black, but it does require quite an accurate shot to get the cue ball in this position. Sometimes it can be difficult not to leave the black straight or go too far down the table and leave yourself a missable cut. Sometimes you can solve this by leaving yourself high on the black and using the top cushion.
It's when you're trying to leave yourself top side of the black. On these sort of shots, if you can leave yourself the right angle, then it means that all you have to do is pop the black at the correct pace, and you're naturally going to be on the next red.
Is it possible to always leave yourself the right angle though? Well, of course not. So sometimes you're going to have to be able to judge a stun shot of the top cushion to be able to get on the next red. You're going to need to be able to play this shot from a variety of angles and be able to get the cue ball to finish on both sides of the table, because sometimes you will have reds that only go into one pocket. Nothing will improve your scoring power more than being able to play these little stun shots around the black consistently. But it's worth remembering you can use side spin to create exactly the same effect as a stun shot and spin the ball back over to your side of the table. You can also use side spin to force the cue ball to go across to the other side of the table. Playing a shot with side spin does increase the difficulty, so if you're going to play these shots, what I'd recommend is that you make sure you don't strike the cue ball too low and strike it higher if possible. Striking the ball higher up will make the cue ball deflect less. This makes the pot a lot more straightforward and less affected by the power you play a shot with. You really want to try and avoid finishing in this position on the black, what's often described as being just off straight the wrong way. Finishing in this position makes it very difficult to get on the next red with a screw shot, and your only real option is to run round off two cushions like this. Potting the black from here isn't really that difficult, but this is probably the hardest position to judge a controlled shot from. So what sort of position do you want on the black for the next red? Well, the only time you really want to be finishing straight on the black is if the next red is on the top cushion or around the pockets. But you really don't want to be finishing low on the black and have the wrong angle to get on the next red. So it's probably better to finish high on the black and not risk leaving yourself a shot where you're not going to be able to get back in position. When you have a straightforward positional shot, and the next red you want to play for is somewhere around the pink and black spot, then ideally you want to finish low on the black. As long as you're confident playing a controlled stun shot, this is probably the most straightforward way to maintain close position on the black. However, when you've got a red on top of the black, you're going to need to find a straight or nearly straight angle so you can easily screw the cue ball back onto the red. This does require a very exact positional shot from the red, and you may find you only have about the width of the cue ball to be able to finish in before you start to run into problems. So with these sort of shots, it may be a lot more sensible to finish high on the black and play off the top cushion for the red. This takes away a lot of the risk of finishing out of position, and you'll find a lot of the time that the reason your break comes to an end is not necessarily that you miss a straightforward pot. Keeping good close control is vital, but you really don't want to be trying to leave every pot you have unmissable. Instead, you want to be leaving yourself high percentage shots that will keep the break going. The major reason for a break coming to an end is a player failing to realise the position they need to be in for the next shot. And quite often this is 2 or 3 shots before the player actually misses a pot. Being very slightly out of position can very quickly spiral out of control until you suddenly find yourself snookered, for example. So a lot of the time you need to be more concerned about where it started going wrong rather than the pot you actually missed. So what do you need to be able to do to be a competent player at the top end of the table? Well, to start off with, you need to be confident in potting the black from almost everywhere on the table. This can only be achieved from a lot of practice of this shot. Something else you're going to need to practice a lot is controlled stun shots around the black spot. These simple shots are the key to break building, and it's not really possible to improve in this area until you can do this consistently to a fairly basic level. The next thing you want to work out is, if you have a choice, and even if you haven't, what sort of an angle you're going to leave yourself on the black. Is it going to be high of the black, straight on the black, or low on the black? Once you understand this, you can then begin improving your control. This will give you more options of where you can finish around the black spot, and you can then begin to leave yourself natural angles, meaning you'll only have to be concerned about the pace you're playing the cue ball at If you find you're missing a lot of these straightforward shots, it's unlikely to be because you're cueing the ball incredibly badly, and a lot more possible that you're simply lining the shot up wrong. So if you find this is a problem, then try our video snooker aiming system. Or if you want to find out more about controlling the cue ball, then try our video snooker basic cue ball control. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel. See you later.